So if your Solectrac starts throwing BMS codes, I'll tell you which one those are. I'll show you on the little screen. There's a two-step process you got to do to get it back up and running, maybe three steps. One of them is usually it occurs when the battery, the little 12-volt battery, runs down. If you have not been putting on a battery tender, to keep it up at 12.5 volts, 12.6 volts. It'll run down and it'll trip the little wrench on your screen. You have to charge the battery. The other problem could be the switch may not be working properly and can not give the full voltage. Full 12.6 volts. You can check the switch, make sure it's working okay. And then if you charge the battery and the switch is okay, there's a reset you can do, kind of like a Control-Alt-Delete, and we'll describe that later. And that worked for us. So we charged the battery, we had Napa check it out, it had the right cold cranking amps and voltage. The switch was okay. We did the reset and it worked. And I'll show you what happens. Yeah, since those are BMS code, battery management system codes, most likely the battery is low or completely drained. If you haven't charged it since you've owned it, we've had ours for 1.5 years and the battery finally gave out. To get at the battery, you got to open the hood of the tractor. It's this black box in the front. There's 2 screws held in by 10mm bolts and nuts. I've taken the nuts off. These are a pain because if you're not careful, they'll drop in and you got to fish them out from the bottom. So when you're taking apart, keep a hand underneath here to get those nuts out. I've taken it apart already. Try not to lose anything. I'll show you what the battery looks like. If you haven't already seen it, it's just a regular battery. There's a positive terminal, and a negative terminal. You could take that off with a regular screwdriver, or I think it's a 8mm nut. This one's really hard because you got this big switch in the way. So you disconnect the terminals. To get the battery out, you got to take this whole case off, and it's held in by these bolts. So there's 4 of them, one here, and then on the other side you could see there's one here and one here. And those are relatively easy to get out. You'll definitely need extension on your ratchet. Just bring the battery in, have them charge it up, and they should give you a report. I brought mine into the Napas. I don't know if this will show up or not, but they gave me a report that said rated 150 cold cranking amps, measured 162, that's after they charged it, voltage 12.59, which is correct, and at the bottom it gives me a little check mark, battery meets or exceeds industry specifications. So the battery checked out okay. So we bought a battery tender. I haven't used it yet, but the guy at Napa recommended a 1.25 amp battery charger, battery tender. You could get these on Amazon. They're like $50, but it's well worth it to, you know, avoid any problems in the future. So if the battery's okay, another area that people have identified as a problem could be this switch. This is the on-off switch for the essentially the control panel. You can test it by what I did was I loosened the bolt inside the wheel well, took this bolt out, and you can just rotate it like that. I don't know if you can see that or not. Rotate it to get to those nuts. There's two nuts down there, and you might need to take those nuts off to test it if you got a tester. And if you need to replace it, it's essentially just this bolt, that bolt holding it on, and then those two bolts holding on the wires. So really important that if you're not using the tractor, that you have this key in the off position, which would be facing horizontally, as opposed to the on position, which is facing forward. And that will help save your battery quite a bit. Go.
So for BMS error codes 140, 142, 143, 144, and 146, you test your BMS system. The first thing is turn off the ignition switch, the cutoff switch, and the 72-volt switch on the main battery. Then turn the parking brake on, turn on the ignition and the 12-volt switch, and turn on the 72-volt switch last. If the tractor starts working, then the BMS is the issue. Doing this changes the sequencing and gets past a programming problem, which is what we had.
How did it work for us?
It worked for us. Tractor's back on, no longer a lawn ornament.